It was a demonic presence, and it was using our Annabelle to manipulate us into giving it a soul it couldn't have it. It tried to take mine, but Samuel reached out to the church. They saved my soul, but the evil was still attached to that doll. So we locked it away, where it could be surrounded by the Word of God.
Welcome back to the Haddonfield Horrors Podcast, where we review horror movies and horror movie franchises. I'm Tawan.
I'm Maria.
And today we're reviewing Annabelle Creation, released in 2017, directed by David F. Sandberg and written by Gary Doberin. Maria, can you give us the plot summary today?
Annabelle Creation is a horror film that serves as a prequel to the 2014 movie Annabelle. Set in the 1950s, it follows a doll maker and his wife who, 12 years after the tragic death of their daughter, open their home to a nun and 12 girls from an orphanage. Soon, the girls become targets of the possessed doll Annabelle, unleashing a terrifying chain of events.
So, Annabelle Creation. So, like Maria mentioned in the plot summary, it is the prequel to Annabelle. And it's overall just a better film than the first Annabelle movie. This movie kind of got the Ouija treatment, where instead of like making the sequel like an actual like sequel, they made it a prequel and gave us a little more backstory to how we got to where we were. But also, it was just a better movie overall, and it was funny because I think when this movie first came out, after seeing the first one, I was like, I don't really care about that one. But I was seeing reviews online about it, and people were like saying it was like way better than the first one. And I was like, okay, I'm interested, and I also like the director of it as well. So I went to check it out, and it definitely like was an improvement. And it really just goes to show how, depending on who you put in the director's chair, can make like a big difference in these type of movies. And it wasn't even like the budget was like super improved. I think the budget for the first Annabelle movie was it was kind of sub like $10 million, and I think this one was maybe like 15, which, I mean, yeah, it makes a difference, but they were still able to do a lot within the constraints of the budget for this movie as well, and it still wasn't like nothing like too grand or anything like that. So it was just crazy to see how improved it was, because it seemed like they actually had like an idea fleshed out for it, as opposed to the first one just wanting to kind of kickstart this sort of Conjuring universe in a way. And I mean, I'm not mad at that they decided to, go that route with it, but this just shows how, with someone like good in the director's chair and, writing, they can, put together a story that, makes sense. I was engaged, and also it made the scares like way better. Like there were actually points in here where I was like, oh shit, and they were like good scares, as opposed to the first one where I think I could probably only pick out like one moment I remember from that movie, and we just recently watched it. But moving to Maria, how did you feel about Annabelle Creation?
Well, I agree with everything you said. Annabelle Creation is definitely like my absolute favorite movie out of the whole franchise.
I'd
I
agree.
I agree with what you said. It's definitely fleshed out more or better than Annabelle, but I feel like compared to like the Conjuring movies, it's not. I mean, there is obviously like religion, but it's not so heavily relied on the religion. You know what I mean? Like it's not so heavily like it's not any like Catholic propaganda or like Christian propaganda. I don't know really what the which one it is, but like
Yeah.
it's they're not like romanticizing everything or like anything really, like it's literally just some girls in an orphanage and these parents who are grieving, and then some stuff happens and then it gets worse. And then, and I feel like I like how it ties into the other movie, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like even then, that ending was still just so great. Like I feel like even without like even if the first Annabelle wasn't made, that would have been a really great ending, you know.
That's
Like
true.
you know, like it didn't really like I mean it was I mean I see it more as like a little Easter egg of like, oh, this is, you know, connected to another movie, but we also didn't really need the first Annabelle, you know? And this I don't know, I love this movie.
Exactly.
I love like the scares, the script. Um I feel like some of the scares like there were some like pop-ups, but I love the way they like some scenes just came like out of nowhere without you really like
Mhm.
expecting it, you know? Um
Yeah, I agree with that. I also agree with what you said about how like it kind of defeats the need for the first one, like because this gives us the actual backstory instead of just like a moment in time with the Annabelle doll, which the first movie was. Like this gives us like everything that we need to know about Annabelle, like how the demon like got placed into the doll, all that stuff, and it gives us everything that we really needed to know, whereas the first one didn't, and it was kind of like a side story in a sense. And you know why this one connected to it? It was just so much done better that the first one kind of feels unnecessary.
yeah, and honestly like cuz I've watched this movie a lot. Like I didn't even have to watch it for this cuz I've seen it so much that sometimes you just kind of forget that there's a first movie. Because
Hmm.
I think we talked about it last week where the first, or not last week, when we talked about Annabelle, we had mentioned that we don't really see Annabelle, like the doll
Yeah.
itself, throughout the movie, but obviously here we do because it's, you know, the origin of it. So it definitely feels like the actual Annabelle movie because we see the doll and yeah, we see what happens with the doll and the demon. And I love, which is why I think there's only like a couple scenes with the demon, but they happen like way later. And,
Hmm.
you know, it might be like, it might be my favorite movie, but they still don't know how to do demons. He still looks like a guy, but it's just kind of like the fact that throughout most of the movie, though, we do see the demon hidden. Like, we don't really see it. And that made it just so much more like, you know, I guess like it left it up to the imagination of what the demon looks like.
Yeah.
And you don't really see the demon until way at the end, and I mean it's disappointing, but you don't get that until the end. So you enjoy most of the ride until, you know. But yeah, I mean it's one of my favorite movies. I loved it, I think, since I watched it. It's so good.
Yeah, and that would I would agree. And I do have something to mention to kind of what you said about like the demon, but I guess we can talk about that in our next little section here about, scenes that we, like, dislike, and including in that also like kind of jump scares that you say you, or like scares that you liked as well. And like how you mentioned, the demon when in its full form just kind of looks like a guy. It was scarier when they kind of just showed like at points like the hand like of the demon, like they didn't show like the whole body, like the scene where I believe it was Linda when she was in the like dumbbell like dumbbell thing, and you just saw like the hands of the demon like pulling it down, like that's scarier than us seeing like the whole demon. It like paid off a little more. Or when she was like um in the bunk bed, for instance, and looking over the side of it, she saw the Annabelle doll. Then the hand just like goes over and pulls the doll like towards itself and like out of the view. Like that's like it like comes off as more scary than actually seeing the demon, because it's always the fear of the unknown type of thing that kind of gets you a little more than once you see it and you're like, oh, okay. Like I'm still a little scared, but like now I know what it is, and he just looks like a guy.
telling you that I just don't know. It's just like like the Conjuring universe just has so much potential, and they are great movies. I mean, there are obviously some not so great movies in the universe, but like just I don't know what, but like the demons just always lack. The only demon that doesn't lack is it's a Valak, but even then, like it's literally just he's just kind of like like some nun. You know what I mean? He
Mm,
looks scary because it's obviously you realize it's very blasphemous, but like I mean I don't know. It's just they kind of should have just kept that same energy. I feel like throughout the series, and I think that's just it. It's just the demons in these movies that just don't hit like every single time. But um, oh my God, I forgot what I was gonna say.
like
But
any
yeah,
scenes that you preferred in this one?
well, I mean, the scenes that you mentioned where you see glimpses of the demon, like before actually seeing the demon, like they were definitely terrifying. Um, One of the big scenes was when the little girl, the one with the polio, when she it like lures her out. No, yeah, so she goes into like the dead little girl's room, and then she sees, the girl.
Yeah.
Um, Honestly, any of those things were also really good. Those were also pretty scary because I think that's where we first see the whole thing where, it's the sheets. You see the sheets stand up, and then the sheets
Mm,
go, and I feel like that's one of the first times we saw it in the series, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah.
And and obviously like nothing is better than the first time it happens, and it just hit. It was so scary because it's freaky because you see it's like right in front of her, and then it's just not there. And then and she gets scared. She runs out, and then all the doors just close. And then and then I think there's like a point where she looks down the corridor, and it's dark, and you could kind of see the demon there. And she obviously
Mm.
she gets scared, so she like runs and tries to like get down the stairs on her thing, and then and it
Pulls her
goes
back
down.
up.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's so scary because it's like, what are you gonna do? Like
Like
what
she
are you gonna
literally
do
can't do
then?
anything. She can't go down the
No,
stairs.
no, she can't. Honestly, I would have
Through my
fucking,
body.
yeah, but
Like at that point.
yeah, but like I think 'cause, like she had her seatbelt on, so like she
Mm,
couldn't get off.
true.
It wouldn't unbuckle, and it goes up, and she's like, okay, and I love this scene because nothing happens, and you're just like, all right, this demon is just messing with her because nothing happens, and then she just flies up. It just grabs her and throws her up, and then you're like wondering because everything is silent. Like there's no music playing. It's just
Mm,
she's not screaming anymore. You don't hear anything. And you're like, and then you get like a shot of the living room and you're wondering like, oh my God, like maybe she just disappeared. And then she falls. And I feel like that scene was just so well made because you don't get the whole like bells and whistles of, oh, the scene is scary and the music is playing and like people are screaming. Like it's literally just, it's like you experienced it in your own home, like with
mm.
everything quiet. There's no sound going on. And it's just like it feels like a regular moment, but it's not regular because something scary is happening, And I loved that scene.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. That was a good scene. Um, Very well crafted, and another like star for the director because like that's like a good moment where you could tell like, oh, somebody was cooking right here. Like he knew what he wanted to do, and he put that shit in here, and it was just one of those moments, and it's like another reason why I give praise to like them picking like a good like follow up director for this one. Um, I would say for me, a scene that I like out of this one was the um, when trying to remember his name because I just forgot it. Sam, when after he's like talking to believe it was Linda outside, and she was telling him how they like went in and saw the doll and stuff, and he told her how they shouldn't like be playing with it, and he went inside with the crucifix, and Janice comes from behind him, and then his fingers just start fucking getting contorted back off the crucifix, and next thing you know, he's dead in there in the house. Like that was like crazy. Bones breaking and stuff is always like just the sound of it. Like it always gets me. But like I was not expecting that because usually in these movies they always like hype it up as the crucifix is like that's going to protect you. Like it'll always protect you. And then you saw that it didn't do a damn thing, and that man was not safe from what was happening to them. So that I just thought that was like a good like scene showing what the demon could do in this one. I
And
think
I think, like, sorry, but like I think like that scene, it's also the fact that we see it happen. Like,
mm-hmm,
like I feel like and I feel like in a lot of movies, when people just kind of scream and then the scene cuts out and then they come back and it's like a brutal scene. But here, like you see, yeah, like you see his fingers contort back. You see that it's like, you know, kind of but like breaking him. And
yeah,
I think another thing about that scene too was that, I think when he first walks in, well, yeah, well, he sees Janice, and then Janice kind of goes behind into like that the dark or the shade or whatever, and then it turns into this, the obviously the demon. But I think if I'm not mistaken, in this scene, like the demon is still wearing the dress that
I
Janice was
believe
wearing,
so.
and I
Yeah, it
feel like
was.
that, or no, it was. Oh, I mean, it was probably that scene, but there was another scene when they were first, like this was way before when B had first died, and they were very upset, and then they kind of realized that she was still in the house, and they were catering to her because they obviously wanted her spirit there because they missed her,
Mm,
and I think the scene when they realized that she was not their daughter, like it was the demon, like, and the demon kind of turns into, I mean, into whatever form it is, but it's wearing the little girl's dress, like it's still wearing it, and I feel like that's so terrifying because I can't imagine like you're obviously sad because your child died, and you feel or you see what you think is their spirit, you invited over, like you invited to stay, blah blah blah. You realize it's a demon, and then the demon kind of grows and turns into whatever, like whatever scary thing it turns into, but it's still wearing your child's clothes. And I don't know. I feel
yeah,
like that scene was good in its own because it was like I feel like sometimes they'll just turn the demon into, the half naked man who's looks like a demon, but no, it was like a crookedly tall little girl wearing their dead daughter's clothes.
yeah, insane. And I think one more thing was crazy because I didn't I didn't think she was gonna make it, but I also didn't think that this was gonna happen. Was when we see the wife for we see it for the first time, and then they come to check back on her, and she's literally nailed to the fucking wall where her body ripped in half. Like
Yeah.
that, I was not expecting that.
And I loved that they used that later.
Yes.
That was scary because obviously this woman's dead, and then she's fucking crawling around like they were already scared of her because of the whole mask thing, And then they see her die in such a brutal way, and then she's still alive, crawling around trying to get to you. Like, that's a lot.
That was crazy. Yeah, that was a really good one. I wasn't expecting it at all. And same with like the scarecrow thing, how they use that as well to get the one girl, Carol, I think it was. Um, or I forget who it was, Carol and Nancy. It was one of them. But when she like got pulled into the shed by the demon, and the scarecrow like came to life and then took out and it was the demon. He took out the light bulb or smashed it. That was a pretty good scene as well. They just had some really good like scares in this one, and like none of them, in my opinion, felt like cheap. Like I felt like they were, most of them were earned like pretty well, and I get like that's one of the like big positives I have about this one, because I mean we know like with these type of movies like what they're kind of going for, but it's like if you're gonna make it like jump scare heavy, or like build up the scares, like they need to be good, and I think that's the main thing I liked about this one. It was just how the first one, which kind of barely had any, and when it did, it was kind of like those things where you know what was coming. But even in this one, where you didn't know something was about to happen, like it was still like very crafted. It was very like well crafted, where you can tell like thought was put into it.
Yeah, I feel like they didn't rely so much on like music, and basically
Mhm.
like they were trying to set up the scare in this movie. They weren't trying to set the moment. The moment just happened, and I feel like that made it so much more impactful because I mean, obviously, if you experience something terrifying in real life, there's not going to be music when that happens, and those things just happen very like out of nowhere. And I feel like this movie just did really well of portraying that,
Mhm.
and they did it in such like I feel like some scares just weren't common, I guess. Um, like when Linda, when she was playing with that little toy gun, and she like
Yeah,
threw it and it went out into the dark, and then it fucking moves, and then it just takes it, and so she like runs, right? Because she's obviously terrified. She runs, she like goes into her bed, and then you hear something walk and get into the bottom bunk, and she ends up going to sleep, and she wakes up and she sees those footprints, and it's just like it's so terrifying.
very unsettling. Um, and I guess while we are here on scenes, and I'll kind of move on to ones that I disliked. Um, I guess for me, it was the the ones where they're hinting at Valak, and then the whole post credit scene with Valak. Like at that point, I was like, all right, they're like on some Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff now for real. Like, what was the point of having that Valak post credit scene at the end of the movie where she's just like moving through the room, through like a hallway or something? Like that was like, all right, we're really just there. I mean, I wasn't like mad at it, but it was funny to me as a person that like watches like the Marvel stuff, and like when they're trying to call back to something, or something's going to come up in a later movie, and somehow like the sister Charlotte um, just so happened to be in a convent where Valak was, and you could see her in the picture in like that one scene. It was just I won't say I like disliked it. It was just kind of like, okay, like I don't. It's not really necessary. It didn't really like hinder my enjoyment of the movie, but it was kind of funny to me. Did you have
See,
any like thoughts on that?
honestly, what mostly got me from that scene was that like they did a little fucking like holographic thing where they like change the picture's position and you could see it and then you don't, then you do and then you don't. I feel like it made the scene really tacky because it was like because they did that I think also with Linda when she had grabbed I think like a picture of B and she had put
Mhm.
it under like her blanket and the eyes were glowing and she
Oh,
brought
the
it
eyes
back
are
and they
going.
weren't and they were and they weren't. I don't know. I didn't like that. It felt very like cheap, you know? And I kind of feel the same way about that scene with Charlotte. I also do kind of feel like it was an unnecessary because like like you're right. I feel like they were trying to tie in the movies, but like I mean I guess it's kind of like what they did with the first Conjuring,
Hmm.
where like it's literally just one scene that ties the movies together, and that's it. And then like the rest of the movie has to do with a bunch of different stuff that has nothing to do with whatever they talked about, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess they were trying to do a whole like Marvel thing, but it just I don't know. It was like the scene was so unnecessary. Like if they just cut out that scene, the movie would have just been the same.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know. But I feel like the whole picture thing was very like I don't know. It just didn't. It wasn't like my first thought wasn't like, whoa, like that's so crazy. But it was like, why is like and nobody's wondering why the picture is doing that? Like you move it, you see it, you move it, you don't. Like you know? Like I don't know. I would have been like, why is that picture like, being in the 1950s, I'm like, why is that picture doing that? You know?
That's facts. Alrighty, so moving on from our scene recap, we will be discussing our characters in this movie. So first on our list, we have the Mullins family as a whole, which is just the family, like in the scene in like the opening of the movie, which is Esther and Samuel, and also their daughter Annabelle. So it, I understand for these people, they just lost their daughter. Yes, we get that. But no way that they had to go to do anything like this to try to bring her back. And now, like, they're in a worse predicament than they are before it happened or after it immediately happened, because now they have to deal with the whole demon in their house because they literally invited it in. And I get it's like obviously I don't personally get it and never lost a child, but like for the movie, for the sake of the movie, yes, I get it. You guys just lost a child, but we don't. I don't think I don't think this is what we turn to bring them back. And I would say like maybe there. I would if this was maybe like current times, I'd be like we have so much media on this, but it was like the 1950s. They ain't know nothing.
Yeah. You would figure that they would want their daughters, like, especially being as religious as they were, that they would want their daughter's soul to be at peace,
Yeah.
you know? But, I mean, and thinking about that, I feel like by using that, they also made Mr. Mullins so, like, so grumpy, you know?
Mm.
Like, I get it, like, your daughter died, and, that's definitely, I mean, yeah, I have not experienced that, but I'm pretty sure it's like a really hard thing to grieve. And, you invite this orphanage over because, you obviously want to do some good at least. But like they just made him so like unapproachable and so like just like I guess like a mean old man. And then they made Mrs. Mullen so like scary that, they made a whole scene about her where like the demon scares the girls as Mrs.
Mm.
Mullins. And then it's like, okay, so then it just seems like they used all that just to set the scene. you know,
Yeah.
just to kind of set different scares or different like storylines in motion.
Yeah, and I mean, I will give them like a point for like trying to write something by doing the whole orphanage thing like that. That was a nice thing, and honestly, I feel like it could have went a little better for them if they didn't like close off the wife like that. Like, yes, maybe the kids would have been the girls. They would have probably been scared the first couple times they saw her, but I'm sure that would have went away if she got time to spend with the girls here or there. I don't think it would have been like that the entire time had like a relationship been brought up for her to like make with the children, because it made them even more scared that they couldn't see her, and then the only time they did see her, quotations around that, was for like that scare moment where they thought like she was in the room with them. So that made them even more scared of what the possibilities were. But if he had just introduced them to her, or like she kept like her room door open for them to interact, I think it would have made it less scary for the girls at that, like while they were there. But also, um, I don't know if it was mentioned if this was like at the first time that they had, like they had just opened it up to having girls there. So if this was like their first time like doing this, let's say it went off without a hitch, and then they had rotated more girls throughout their home, that probably would have like happened over time. But like I get it, but also they could have they could have helped the situation a little more. But yeah, the husband, he definitely came off as a bit of a grouch, which, as I mentioned, yeah, get it. You lost your daughter. You would have to see what happened to your wife. I'd probably be a little grouch too. But it's like if you're gonna have that attitude, I don't think we should be having like other children around as well, if that's like how you're gonna be acting.
Yeah, because it's like, even though like I guess they may not be his kids, like they're still children. They still see that and they still kind of feed off of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I feel like especially for like Mrs. Mullins, I can't imagine how hard it must be. Like yeah, it's the first like to hear little girls laughing throughout your house where you used to have a little girl who used to
Mm-hmm.
do that, like and yeah, not to mention she's so closed off, like that it would have been nice for for her to be introduced to the girls and for them to be able to visit her whenever. I
Yeah.
just I guess I guess the whole letting the orphanage move in seemed like a very last minute thing to them. I don't think they were super prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
And and not to mention, like they have a fucking evil doll in the
Literally.
house. Like these kids are gonna get anywhere. Like I feel like they should have known that. These kids get in anywhere. Like they're gonna find it sooner or later. Why don't you warn anybody? Like why didn't they say anything? He didn't even say anything when Linda brought it up
Or tell the
to him.
the nun.
Yeah, he was just like, no, there's no doll. And then he went inside and he gets killed by said doll. Like what like what did you think? I don't know. It's just yeah, just I guess I just didn't like how they made like their characters very kind of like incompetent, I guess,
Mm.
is the best way to describe it, but maybe harsh. But like it's just yeah, just the fact that Mr. Mullen just kind of set the scene and like he would add to the plot whenever, but it was also just like I guess also like the same thing with Mrs. Mullins. Like they're just kind of characters just to kind of set things in motion.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad because I mean it's their daughter. They're the ones that had to deal with it for like well not really deal with it, but they're the ones that it's yeah, I mean it's their daughter. They're the ones who kind of dealt with the demon first and you would think that they would get that chance again, but they didn't.
Mm. And I will say, I kind of thought, like, when I first saw this movie, I thought they brought the girls there on purpose so that they could find the demon to take over one of the girls. When I first saw this movie, I thought that's what they were doing. Like, I thought they knew they knew the demon wanted a soul, and to continue on with like thinking that it was like their daughter, they were gonna actually use one of these girls to replace their daughter. I thought that's what was going on at first, but then obviously that wasn't what happened. But I feel like that would have been like a cool little story beat.
That would have been really interesting to see.
Yeah, I thought that's where they were going. Kind of glad they did it because we see that they were like just trying to like repent for what happened. But I definitely thought that's where we were going with it at first. Um, Moving on though, we have Sister Charlotte. You have any opinions about her, Maria?
I'm so I mean I liked Sister Charlotte. I feel like she was present throughout the movie and offered the girls advice when they needed it. She was definitely a huge presence towards the end when yeah, right, Janet, when she was over here trying to stab
Mm-hmm.
people. And I feel like that was pretty cool of her, especially for being like a nun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I feel like because when Janet was first telling, Sister Charlotte about the strange happenings, she just kind of like brushed her off. And it's like, like Janet was like, this place just feels evil. And Charlotte was like, well, you know, she was like, maybe you just feel that way. And I mean, she didn't say it like that, but it's just, I feel like she just invalidated Janet's feelings. Well, maybe not that either, but I mean, it's not like they really had another place to be able to go to, but I feel like she should have been a little bit more wary, you know? Um, I mean, she probably thought that Janet was probably just not feeling it because of I guess because maybe she just felt left out, but I don't know. I feel like she should have been a little bit more like attentive to that. Um, I feel like I don't know. I mean, I guess you would just kind of assume that if someone's very like spiritual, that they would be open to listening to things like that. But Charlotte was just very much like, I'm shutting it down. I think when Jenna was first telling her about the doll, Sister Charlotte was like, "Well, you should have been in the room. Like now you need to pray and help me with these boxes." And they just left it like that. And it was like, that doesn't sound like alarming to you. Like, like Janet definitely seems like she has a good head on her shoulders. And Sister Charlotte was just like, well, you're just a little girl. It's okay, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also for Sister Charlotte, like I don't know, like I don't know, maybe should she have like sensed something was off in this house? Like she don't sense the energy or the vibes or nothing. Like I don't know. Like these movies always set it up like if someone's like any like part of any like religious thing, they can kind of like sense like something's off. Like girl, the vibes in this house are rancid. Like you can't tell. Like you're in there with them. Like you can't tell something's off right now. She really did come around to like the end when she was seeing it for herself. But I don't know, like being a member of the church, I would think that she was like sensed something was off a little earlier than wait until Linda was almost pulled into the well. I'm like, girl, yo, it's just like I would think that like someone in her position should maybe be able to see something was a little bit off.
And especially if she was at like the church with Valak or whatever being in there. Like you
That's
would
true.
think that she would kind of like have some sort of experience. I mean, and like that's what I mean. Like you kind of assume people that are like very religious tend to be spiritual and they tend to have, I don't know, I mean that's just me, but it was also the fact that Charlotte was just kind of telling Janet like, nah, like you're kind of not telling her that she's crazy, but just basically saying that I mean, I guess I can understand, especially if like you don't really have anywhere else to go. But, at the same time, it's also like there's some weird shit going on. And there was a bunch of weird stuff going on. And then especially after like Mr. Mullen dies and they're still there.
Like they should have been out immediately. But let's see who we have next here is Linda, who was one of the orphan girls that was a part of the group. And it was funny seeing her in this because I remember seeing her in Ouija, the prequel to that one. And when I first saw her in this one, I was like, "Oh, she's gonna be the demon," and then she didn't actually end up being the demon in this one. I was like, "Oh, she's good in this one," but she's a good like child actress in this one. I actually do like that actress. She did like really good in this, but um, she was the one figuring not like kind of figuring most of the things out or seeing a lot of stuff in this, but oh man, I had a thought I was about to go with her, but she was still like seeing a lot of the stuff that was happening in the house. Like she had that whole thing that happened with like the toy gun and um the also when she like crawled on the bed and saw like the demon and everything. So she was kind of doing a lot of like heavy lifting, I would say, especially when she was about to throw the doll or she threw the doll into the well and and was trying to like cover it up and everything. Like she was honestly doing more work than Sister Charlotte.
She was like she would just run in there. That girl had no hesitation.
Yeah, like she was on go time and she was not she wasn't trying to have her life played with out here. She wanted to get that shit nipped in the bud immediately, and I do not blame her because I would do the same if I had to. But yeah, I thought like she did like really good. I thought like she was like really good here, and it was just funny to me because, like I mentioned, after seeing her in the Ouija movie, I definitely thought like she was gonna be the little demon child, but it was just funny seeing that she wasn't. Did you have any thoughts on Linda by chance?
I mean, I like her child actress. I feel like in any movie she's been in, she's always done great and the movie has been good. And you're right, like it's funny because she knew that the doll right away, she was like, that doll's weird.
Yeah.
And yeah, she for real grabbed the doll in the first of all, in the middle of the night. She grabs the doll from her like unhinged or like her friend that's like spiraling out. She just fucking grabbed it. And then she goes to the well that's like far away, and I don't know, I feel like that would have been like a really scary thing to do, but she did it. Like she's a real one for that. But like um yeah, and she was gonna throw it down the well and I loved that she didn't really like back down throughout the movie. Like she, kept telling Sister Charlotte like something's wrong with Janet. She told, Mr. Mullins about what happened with the doll, kind of despite knowing that they weren't supposed to be in the room, and I feel like that was a good quality of hers throughout the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like just her acting in general was just really good. I did like her character because yeah, you're right. Like she was the only one that was putting the pieces together. Which is so weird. Like Mr. fucking Mullins had already gone through it once. Like you don't realize it again. Like I don't know. I don't know, that's just me. But like you would think he would have some experience. Like
Hmm.
the house doesn't feel weird to you. Um so yeah, I mean I liked Linda and I liked her character.
Yeah, some people are not good at picking out the vibes because the vibes, like y'all don't see the vibes as often here.
Yeah, like these
Oh
girls
man.
just got weird out of nowhere.
Well,
Like
next we
nobody picked that up.
have no, truly, and next we have our actual demon girl of the movie, who happened to be Janice. And I feel so bad for Janice throughout the entire time because like she's at a disadvantage just because of the ailment that she had. So like she really couldn't do much um like with herself because like she was just immediately at a disadvantage of like having that. And even like when she tried to like escape, she couldn't do it and got put in an even worse position because at that like she got pushed off the or thrown off the second floor and was fully like out of it, and now was in a wheelchair at that point. So like she was just fully like she couldn't really do much for herself. Now we'll give her that she was trying to like fight like whenever they like either like the demon like took her out of her like wheelchair or pushed her on the ground or anything like that. She was definitely trying to like fight, but like it was not much that she could really do with with all of that. So the demon definitely picked its easiest target, which um, just put her at an immediately kind of disadvantage like that. So I felt bad for her, but she definitely fought where she could, but she just wasn't able to do much, obviously, and felt kind of bad for her for that. But she was doing a lot of snooping, which for a child, yes, I get it, but also like I need y'all to be scared. I need these kids to be a little more scared. Like they weren't scared enough for me to like not Snoop in these that look to like come on now. What
Yeah. I
were
mean,
what were like thoughts on Janice?
well, I feel like the actress definitely portrayed all of that really well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like she didn't overdo it and she also didn't underdo it when all these scary things were happening. But you were right. Like she was kind of snooping a lot. I mean, I guess she was just kind of feeling lonely because of, she felt like she was being left out from the other girls. But like, I don't know, like this room is locking and unlocking itself. Like that's weird. Like a red flag right there. Like why is this room doing that? And then I mean, I guess it's also because I can't really blame the little girls because like the adults should have said something. They should have been like, "Hey, this room right here, it's fucking haunted. Like, there's a fucking demon in there, so stay away." You know? And I mean, I feel like that would get kids. Like the kids are gonna be like, "Oh my God." Well, I mean, it may or may not. I feel like it's still like a 50-50 chance. But I mean, I just feel like you just gotta blame the adults, especially like the Mullins. Like they definitely should have told Sister Charlotte, like, hey, just so you know, there's a demon in the house that kind of preys on little girls. So, watch out for that or watch your girls. Um, but I also feel like all the scenes with the demon and Janice, like they were pretty scary. Um,
Yeah,
I feel like you definitely get to feel just like her fear, and yeah, and I guess the fact that she couldn't really do anything about it. She definitely fought, which is great because you definitely fight, but realistically, she couldn't really do much. Like when we were talking about earlier, when she was like in that moving chair, and then it was like moving back up, and she just couldn't do anything about it.
Hmm.
You know, and I can't imagine how terrifying that would be. Um, but I feel like Janice definitely played a huge part to the plot, and the actress definitely didn't like oversell it. It wasn't too much, and even like the parts, like you could just tell when she was possessed, and then when she was out here trying to stab people, I like the fact that it didn't seem like totally out of character
Yeah.
for her, if that makes any sense. Like, obviously, like in the beginning of the movie, I wouldn't expect this little girl to be out here trying to stab people. But I feel like the actress played it so well that it didn't look weird, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't like, oh, it's just a little girl with a knife. Like you literally felt terrified that it was a little girl with a knife. And that's what I really liked about her character.
Yeah, and I guess that's probably one thing I can say about this movie as a whole is that they did pretty good with the casting of the um like child actors, because especially like child actors in like horror movies, they can definitely make or break a project, but they were casted like pretty good in here, and they didn't feel like either they were overdoing it or underdoing it as well. It felt like the correct emotional beats that you would expect from a child going through like this type of situation. So that I will say I liked of all of them. But I guess to round out our like little list here, we have our villain, which is Annabelle slash our demon. Um, there wasn't much, I guess you could say, like, difference between it, but like the demon, but from this one and the first, like, Annabelle movie, it just really wanted, like, a soul or a host for the most part, which, it got out of through Janice. But I don't know, maybe the demon was just more creative in the 50s because it was fun, it was more fun. Like, I feel like he was having more fun this time around. He was fucking with he was like the crow, the scene where the demon took over the mom's body, like that was crazy. So I don't know, maybe he was just having a little more fun this time around.
Not a
But
little more fun.
like I don't know, he was just having a little fun.
I agree. I feel like the demon this time around was very creative. Like he was for real, like trying his best here. And it showed, and he did well. Uh, it was definitely, especially compared to like the first movie, I feel like the demon in the first
Mhm.
movie was very like underwhelming. But then, here you see him doing all this shit, and you're like, whoa, like I'm like this guy's actually kind of scary. Like he for real he had bills due. You know what I mean? Like I feel like he was genuinely trying to scare these girls, but at the same time, he was actively trying to get Janice. Like he was actively, or it, whatever it was actively trying to get their target. Whereas I feel like in the other movies, like the scares just weren't really there. And the movies, and I think we talked about it like with the Annabelle movie where it was kind of boring, like
Yeah.
there was like a lot of elements to the movie that, but one of them was just not like this demon and this doll is out to like to kill people or whatever. But I feel like here, I mean, that man pulled out all the stops. Like he for real was trying to, get Janice. He was trying to kill these girls. I feel like it seemed that it had more of a plan this time around
Mhm.
compared to like the first movie, whereas it was just trying to get a body. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Which is crazy because it was like it's still trying to do the same thing, but just in the hands of someone, a different team working behind the scenes on the movie, they can just provide so much more to it. So it's just like one of those things again where it really matters like who you have working behind the scenes on your movie and how it can like impact somebody like a character that we've seen in the past. But with that, we will now be moving on to our behind the scenes, which I'll present to us. So, Annabelle Creation had a budget of 15 million and brought in a box office of 306 million. Some interesting facts here. With this release, it pushed the Conjuring franchise past the $1 billion threshold, making it only the third horror series to cross that mark after the Alien franchise and Resident Evil series. Trio Toole, who played the adult Annabelle Higgins, is usually a stunt woman and has also been a stunt woman for Vera Farmiga in the other Conjuring films. David F. Sandberg was initially reluctant to direct the film due to his general dislike of horror sequels. He changed his mind when it was clear he would be making a standalone prequel with no major obligations to connect it in any way to other films beyond a few brief references to them. Some critics' reactions. The film currently sits at a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. The Hollywood Reporter called it wickedly terrifying and said it was closer in tone and old school psychological fright tactics to the original film than either The Conjuring or Annabelle. Variety, while criticizing the plot, said the film nevertheless manages to conjure some effective scares, and Empire felt that while the movie can't hold a flickering candle to the James Wan directed entries of the series, it's got plenty of decent shocks and the odd genuine surprise up its sleeve. But enough of them. What about us? Maria, do you cash or pass Annabelle Creation?
I definitely cash this movie. I love it. It's I feel like it just has really good elements in the movie that just like regarding like the music and then the way scenes are set up, the scares. I feel like it also has a very strong plot. And compared to, because I guess right now, we've only really covered, the Conjuring movies and the Annabelle movie, or like the first two Conjuring movies and the Annabelle movie. But I feel like compared to the Conjuring movies, it's not really like romance heavy. It doesn't have those like Christian under or Catholic undertones. It's literally just a movie about some grieving parents who bring in these girls and then just scary stuff happens. And and it just and I love that they centered around that because I think they're not trying to get through all these different themes that they're trying to touch with all these random scenes. It's literally just we're gonna scare you because this demon's trying to scare these girls and he's trying to take a soul. And it works and it is scary. Um and just I don't, honestly it's just the scenes. Like a lot of these scenes were set up so beautifully and it just made the movie so much better. Um and oh my god, I was gonna say something else. But well I guess that's it. So yeah, I definitely cash.
And I will be right there with you in cashing Annabelle Creation. I really like this movie, especially as it just being a general follow up to the first one. And it really doesn't, it really doesn't, well, let me rephrase. It definitely makes the material better than what we had with the first like spin-off for the Conjuring franchise, and I think that David Sandberg did like a great job with it, and he's like a really good director, and I just like his material. So seeing him being brought over here and improving on what we previously had from the first Annabelle movie is definitely a cash in my book. Um, and like we mentioned like at the beginning, it's definitely just one of the better like movies in the Conjuring like franchise as a whole. I think it's better than the other two Nun movies, and also like it more than the third Conjuring movie. Now I don't know if I like it more than the Conjuring 2, but we'll get to that when we eventually rank all of our like Conjuring franchise movies. But with that, I will leave you all with it for tonight. And I believe our next movie in the franchise is actually going to be the first Nun movie. So until then, you all have a good one and good night.
If you like this episode, please check out the Haddonfield Horror podcast from big series like Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Saw, or our one-off reviews like The Blackening and Hereditary. You can follow Haddonfield Horrors on Instagram and TikTok, where the hosts post updates and mini-reviews. Full episodes are available on several podcasting platforms and YouTube. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. The Haddonfield Horror podcast is produced by Mark Smart,
Maria Perez,
Twan Griffin, and Elian Cordova. Themed by Lethal Injection and edited by Mark Smart.
The Haddonfield Horrors podcast is a Letters to Media production.
should we do an intro?